That's what I'm working on. Turn the camera around. I was up here before yesterday. Crap. I don't know. Oh, here. Okay, I'm going to be able to pan. Give you a moment. Hello, I'm Virginia Easton Smith, and I'm the Ag and Natural Resources Agent with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension in Aransas County. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to be talking about pruning ornamental trees, and most of what I say is going to apply to fruit trees also, but there are a few differences for fruit trees. I wanted to tell everybody Happy Earth Day. It's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, if you can believe it. And I want to note that I am not pruning an oak tree today, even though we have lots of live oaks here in Aransas County. Because of the threat of oak wilt, which we do not have in our county as far as we know, but because of that threat, we do not prune oak trees between February 1st and June 15th. And that applies to the whole state, and the reason for that is the insect that carries oak wilt disease is most active during those months, and they are attracted to freshly pruned wood. So do not prune your oak tree during that time. I'm going to be pruning this cedar elm tree because it just needs a little bit of shaping and some opening up. And I also wanted to mention, as a safety thing, you need to keep your feet on the ground when you're pruning, even if your head is in the clouds. If your tree pruning requires ladders, climbing, and or a chainsaw, you really should leave it up to the professionals, preferably a certified arborist. So before we prune, we need to decide the reason that we're pruning. You don't have to prune every year or because you haven't pruned for a long time or anything else like that. It's stressful for trees to be pruned, although it can also help them, but don't prune without a reason. So some of the reasons that you might prune are to control the size and shape of your tree. However, if you are having to prune a lot to control the size, then you might just want to prune it down at ground level and plant something else. You need to have the right tree in the right place that's not going to outgrow its bounds too much. But for any tree, sometimes you have to cut it back a little bit to control the size. You also prune to remove disease and dead wood, and that's for the health of the tree as well as safety of people. You know, dead branches can drop and disease can move towards the center of the tree, so that's why we cut off diseased branches. We also prune to open up the center of the tree to light and airflow. And for access under the tree, maybe you need to run the lawnmower under the tree, or you just want to prune it up a little bit so you can put a couple chairs under there and sit and enjoy the outside. So those are some of the reasons that we prune. And we want to prune as early as possible. So if you're pruning to shape a tree, you want to do it when the tree is young, so that you're not cutting off a lot of growth that the tree has wasted energy growing if it's just going to be cut off. Same with any reason that you're pruning. If you decide to prune, go ahead and do it when you decide it's needed. If it's too big, prune it now, don't wait. And there's a rule of thumb, never take off more than a third of the tree at one time, a third of the canopy, because that is too stressful for a tree. And generally the best time to prune is in the cooler winter months when the trees are somewhat dormant. Okay, we need to consider our tools. So I've got 3 tools here. I've got hand pruners, which just take one hand to use. These are good for pruning branches that are up to about 1 inch in diameter, half an inch in diameter, I mean. Although if you have ratchet pruners like this, that have this ratchet mechanism, you can prune branches that are a lot bigger than if you didn't have this. It doesn't take as much strength as with regular pruners, and if you're doing a lot of pruning, it's not as tiring. So ratchet pruners are great, and you can get them in hand pruners or in loppers. So if the branch is about bigger than a 1/2 inch up to about 1.5 inches, you want to use these two-handled loppers. And then if it's bigger than that, bigger than about 1.5 to 2 inches, you want to use a pruning saw. This is a nice one that folds up and you can keep it in your pocket without poking yourself. And the difference between a pruning saw and a regular carpenter saw is the way the teeth are. Pruning saws cut on the push and the pull, whereas a carpenter saw just cuts on the push. So you use less energy with a pruning saw than with a carpenter saw. So we are going to get started now. It can be overwhelming when you first start to prune a tree to figure out what to cut. So I always start with the things that I know have to go. I mentioned before about diseased and damaged wood. So I'm going to look in this tree for diseased and damaged wood. And I don't really see any, which is good. So the next thing I want to cut off is suckers. And suckers are shoots that are growing straight up, or that are growing out of the main trunk and are not branches. So here's a couple suckers here. They might also be growing straight up, like this one. This one is growing straight up out of the branch. Frequently, they're not very strong connection, and they don't really look that good, so we get rid of them. Okay, we also want to take out branches that are crossing, or that are growing inward, or where there's just too many branches. And one of the things I see on this tree is we have this branch coming up out of the center. I don't like it, it's ugly. We have a nice shape here. We've got low branching, but we have nice branching with a wide crotch angle, and then we got this stubby thing right in the middle. So I'm going to get rid of this. Through the wonder of Facebook Live, it was partially cut before, so I was able to get it off really fast. Okay, so this opens up the tree a lot. It's much more pleasing now to look at it. It's nice when you can see the trunk and the branches. The shape that we're going for with most trees is either a central leader, which is like the trunk that just grows straight up, with scaffold branches coming off around it, well distributed. Or we're looking for something like this that comes up and splits off. So there's another branch over here that might be excessive, but I'm not sure yet that I want to take it off. There's one here, there's this little stubby one here. I know that I want to take that off, and I think I can use my loppers for that. Just cleans it up a little bit. We take off these extra little branches. Branches growing inward towards the center of the tree. And then here we've got two branches that are really close together. And we are always looking for branches that have a wide crotch angle. And that's the angle between either the main trunk and main branches, or between large branches and another branch. So you want an angle of at least 45 degrees, the angle here. So this has a nice wide crotch angle. Didn't close to 90 degrees. This has a nice enough crotch angle here. But these ones are growing really close together. And so what happens is over time, as each one of those branches gets larger in diameter, it's going to start to push against the other one, and eventually it can pop apart. It makes a really weak connection. But I'm going to have to switch into ratchet mode here. The angle of that branch was a little hard to get to. So I had talked about maybe cutting this branch off, but now that I have removed this one that was growing almost parallel to it, I think I'm going to leave that one. And it's important to remember that you don't have to prune it all at one time. You can prune a little bit and then come back in a day or a few days, look at the tree, see how it looks, and decide whether or not you want to prune more. There is no need to get it all done in one day. And when we're pruning our own trees, not for pay, then we have the luxury of taking our time, letting it sit a few days, and looking over it. Okay, I'm not going to take this branch off, but I do want to prune it up a little bit because it's got these stubs sticking out. Got a branch here that's growing inside the tree. So I want to get rid of that. And it's important how you make your cut. We do not make flush cuts. That's the old way. We do the new way. We don't want to leave a stub either. What we want to do is cut right beyond the branch collar. And the branch collar contains cells in it that will grow over the cut. It doesn't exactly heal it, but it compartmentalizes it so it's less likely to be open to disease and insect attack. Sometimes you can see the branch collar. It's a slight swelling where the branch meets the other branch or the main branch meets the trunk. On this tree you can't really see it, but there is a bark ridge here, right here. It looks like a scar, kind of. And if you make a mirror image of that, that is where you would make your cut, and you would be beyond the branch collar if you made your cut there. Okay, another reason to prune trees, as I mentioned, is if you want access under it. So I got a little quiz for you here. This branch right here right now is about, let's say, 2 feet off the ground. When this tree grows another 5 feet, how high off the ground do you think this branch is going to be? If you know the answer, call it out, but say it loud so I can hear you. Oh, yes, I knew someone knew the right answer. This branch is always going to be 2 feet off the ground because the tree doesn't grow from the base. It only grows from the tips. While we're talking about this tree, even though it's not about pruning, I noticed that the mulch here is piled up way too high. We should be able to see the root flare. Somebody got overly enthusiastic with the mulch. Mulch is great, but it needs to be kept off the trunk because it will rot it. The bark is not meant to be covered up with soil. It's not meant to be moist all the time. And the mulch is a double whammy because organic mulch, as it decomposes, it generates heat. So it kind of rots the bark even faster. And that can actually girdle the tree. So we want to pull this away until we find the first real root. And then just barely cover that back up. And we want to keep our irrigation covered up too. So later I'm going to come back and clear this back a little more and make it better. Okay, so I was talking about the branch collar not being very visible on this tree. And in a minute, I'm going to show you another tree where you can see the branch collar much easier. Okay, so let's move over to this wild olive. Okay, on this tree it's a lot easier to see the branch collar. It's this swollen part right here. So you can see the branch gets a little wider here where it meets this branch. So if we were going to cut this branch off, which we're not, we would make the cut right there. And it's not going to be perpendicular to the ground. It's going to be at a little bit of an angle, following the shape of the branch. So that's it for the basics of tree pruning. Please join us on Aggie Horticulture on Friday at 1 o'clock for shrub pruning. See you then, and thank you for watching.